Okay,
All
there we
right.
go.
Yes. All right. Welcome to episode 127 of Amari Purple Talk, the music podcast that talks about Prince, Prince related artists, music, videos, films, everything in the purple world of the purple musical singularity. And joining me this episode is the one, the only host of the Purple Nights podcast, Mr. Chris Johnson. Chris Johnson, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, this is a long time coming. I did your show, was it last year?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yep.
did we did hit and run phase two, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yep. And I enjoyed that a lot. Yeah, that was a pretty powerful episode. So if you
So
hadn't
did
had a
I.
yeah, if you hadn't had a chance to check it out, we'll have a link to the Purple Nights podcast, and you can watch that episode as well as many other great episodes. Mr. Johnson talks to a lot of great people in the purple musical singularity, celebrated guests, but I'll let you talk about that.
Well, I've had some wonderful guests on. Probably the two most memorable I've had on was Prince scholar Dwayne Tudall, who's written the great studio sessions um, duo of books right now, but
Yep.
it's about to be a trio. But yeah, there's the first one. And there's the second one. Yeah,
Yeah, I
just
got
came
the
out
the
in
hardback.
paperback.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've had Dwayne on. He is a great guest and a really great person. My proudest moment as a podcaster is I've had Susan Rogers on twice, and
Amazing.
she's just remarkable. She's a joy to talk to. I can't describe how blessed I've been to have her on. Um, The one I'm really excited about that I haven't nailed down yet is the one and only Maite Garcia, but we're working on that. We're going to make it
Okay.
happen sometime in the near future. So I'm really looking forward to that. It'll be a dream come true
Yeah.
to have Maite on the Purple Nights podcast.
Yeah, I finally got a chance to read her book um, just probably early part of the summer.
Okay.
And yeah, I enjoyed the book. I mean, not only just the stuff dealing with Prince and the marriage and everything that came before and after, but I mean just her life in general. It's
Right.
fascinating. Yeah.
Right. And
Yes.
that's what I try to do with the majority of the guests on the Purple Nights podcast, especially when I have associates and people like that on. We know them primarily because of their work and their association with Prince, right? But at the same time, we don't want to sell them short and make it seem like that's all they're about. So
Right.
we want to spread the love and take a look at their contributions and their work above and beyond Prince as well. So
Yeah.
with Maite, I'll definitely be doing that because she does do a lot of work with animal rescue. She does
Mhm.
charity work for a nonprofit. So we'll have a lot to talk about in addition to Prince, of course.
Okay. Yeah, definitely
So,
looking forward to watching that interview. So yeah, keep me
yeah.
posted.
Oh, yeah, you know it.
Cool, cool. All right, so we're going to dive into our topics. The first topic is something that I haven't touched on since maybe the first season of the show, and just brings up the question of when will we hear Prince's final album? Now we know that Prince was always recording; he was always working on songs. Um, Sometimes he would get to a point to where, okay, this is going to be the album, and then sometimes he's just working because he just always had that drive. Um, but there were, I guess, a project or projects in circulation. Kind of the years leading up to 2016. I know there was one, Black is the New Black. That was one project. Um, a live piano and microphone was in the works. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, probably one of the last songs was a song called Be Cool. And that was just based on a lyric sheet that was on the stand in Paisley Park at the time. So I know for me, this is one of those albums where, I would be excited for it, but at the same time, it's that thing I'm kind of apprehensive about just because of the finality of it all. And I know, Chris, we were talking before the show, and I was telling you about how the Hendrix estate, when they dropped the album First Rays of the New Rising Sun, and that was one I didn't know about, what Hendrix was working on. I didn't know that much about him beyond the 3 albums that he had in his lifetime, plus Band of Gypsies. So when that was released, it was just kind of like, okay, well, that exists, and that's what they say it is. And, it's a pretty strong compilation. But I would say this, and probably the only other thing that I would have that excitement and kind of apprehension about also would be like John Lennon and Yoko Ono's Double Fantasy album. Or, when they do if they ever get around to doing like a box set or a deluxe edition of that. Now, there's still a ways to go with the Lennon stuff, but with Prince, would they ever, the estate ever consider compiling enough tracks and say, this was the final album? Would they do it after, say, they've gotten all the classic stuff released and everything that's been officially released? Or would they drop it in between, say a Parade Super Deluxe and a Diamonds and Pearls Super Deluxe?
Just going off, the amount of time it's been since, people like Hendrix and Miles Davis and John Lennon have passed, a lot of that stuff doesn't come out until 20 or 30 years down the road. So I would hope that something like that for Prince would come out sooner, but my money is I put my money on the likelihood that it's going to be later down the road. Now that could either be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on where we're at in our stages of life as fans. I tend to skew on the younger side of fans. I'm 42 years old. I was born in the year of Dirty Minds, so
okay,
I'm on the younger side of fandom, as far as being contemporaries with Prince. More like fans like my older sister who turned me on to Prince. She's in her 50s, right? So I'm hoping that for the fan community's sake that it's sooner rather than later. But I think just looking at the trends of posthumous releases for other artists, those type of compilations are usually farther down the road, and it's interesting to think about because it could be a fully formulated album, or it could be an EP, or it could be just a compilation of various tracks from that 2015 2016 period, right? So we don't really know what shape or form that'll take, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the release of that material, that so-called final material that he recorded. And I'm sure with marketing and all that, they'll definitely put an emphasis on the fact that it's his final studio work, so that'll be the big selling point. But yeah, stuff like Black is the New Black and Rough Enough, and songs like Rough Enough and Free Yourself, towards the end there. they're one of my uh probably top three holy grails right now in terms of Prince releases that I'd like to see released
Mm,
in my lifetime. So definitely looking forward to that.
yeah. And I'm, yeah, and you brought up a very interesting point about the timeline. Excuse me, because they have, we have artists, like you said, it's 20 years. Like, okay, the Hendrix estate, you know, um, at one point, Hendrix's father had control of the estate early on. He got swindled out of it and had to sue to get it back. And that was like a 15, 20-year battle. And it wasn't until 1996 when he was able to get those rights back
Yeah,
to
yeah,
everything. And
yeah.
and then of course, when he passed, now his daughter controls everything with the Hendrix estate. So from 96 to now, it's been a steady stream of releases. Of course, in 2000, they changed licensing from Universal to Sony. So
Okay.
yeah, so you gotta, again, another reissue and remaster of the original albums, whatever box sets were available during, when they first got control in 96. And then from that point forward, through now, live albums, they have a website where they have a separate label for, just fan base stuff.
Right,
And,
right.
like live recordings, and some of that stuff is even, they've paid the fans for it. Whoever had a tape of that concert that nobody else has, not even Hendrix had it, and they
And
would they would release it.
that's something that I think all of us as Prince fans, or the majority of us at least, I know I shouldn't say all because that's a little generalization, but most of us I would say would want some type of online platform like say a revival of the MPG Music Club where
Yes.
we could buy, you know, live and studio recordings, whenever we want, however in whatever configuration or bundle, we so choose. We would love to be able to have that opportunity. I know Bruce Springsteen has a similar thing. Uh, I believe uh, Neil Young does
Yeah.
also, or maybe I'm confusing that with another
Mm-mm.
artist.
No, because actually I subscribe to that. It's $20 a year, for the minimum. And
Yeah,
even with that $20, you get a wealth of material that you can listen to. And
yeah.
yeah.
I I would love that. That would personally be like Christmas all year round for me as a hardcore Prince fan
Mm,
to have an outlet like that where you could just, get music anytime. Music and that is to say studio music, live
live.
performances, and video as well as audio.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, some of the fans have this stuff in droves. I know Dr. Funkenberry, shout out to Dr. Funkenberry,
what's
big
up?
luminary in the Prince purple singularity, as you like to put it,
Yeah.
Richard. Um, he has quite a few videos on his TikTok account. If you follow him on TikTok, he's digitized a bunch of old stories and videos from VHS that he had recorded off of TV and various sources, and
Wow.
he's posted them on TikTok. So it's like kind of like going back on a time machine. And stuff like that could be sourced from fans would be cool to have too, because a lot of us out there have a lot of the stuff in pretty good quality. So the estate would be wise, I think, to consult us and hit us up for some of this stuff that maybe they don't have access to anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I
But
think it's a good model. Like I said,
yeah,
looking at the Hendrix and Neil Young and others, Zappa website
yep,
too, lots of studio, lots of live recordings.
Yep.
And, you know, they listen to the fans. You know, they give the fans exactly what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting, you know, talking about the finality of it all, and you know, you being a little confused or conflicted about it. You know, my one of my contacts on Twitter is a real nice guy. I haven't had him on the Purple Knights podcast yet, but Mr. Scott Woods out of Columbus, Ohio.
Oh yeah, yes,
He's
yeah.
a
Shout out to
poet.
Scott.
He's a poet and essayist, and he wrote a um or he published a book, I should say, of his Prince essays. Prince and Little Weird Black Boy Gods, I believe, is the name of the book. If any of you haven't checked that out yet, look that up and check it
Okay.
out because it's good stuff. But Scott Woods the other day posted a Twitter thread basically talking about, you know, people fronting because they're all, you know, demanding and they're insatiable for all this vault material all at once. And Scott's argument was that deep down people are scared or nervous at the notion that the 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 output from Prince is finite, right? There's going to be an end to it someday, you know, because he's no longer around to produce new stuff. So someday, if they go through the entire vault, you know, and it's going to be the end of it at some point, and people still aren't going to be satisfied because there's this psychological need to, um, you know, consume all this material from this beloved artist. But, you know, we've got to realize in our logical minds that it's all finite and there's an end to it
Mhm.
somewhere. So, and I think that scares a lot of people. So I think that's why people get caught up in the fervor of wanting everything everywhere all at once, to quote a title of a great movie.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I think that's a big part of where we're at in Prince fandom at present. Because I was telling you, you know, before we started the show, it's kind of a tenuous time as a Prince fan, right? Because we're in between regimes for the Prince estate, and right now we don't know, you know, what's going to happen or what the future holds. Really, we don't know what the game plan is for the new regime coming in. And like you alluded to on your last podcast, Richard, the Netflix documentary is likely what's holding things up right now. So once the Netflix documentary drops sometime next year, my strong bet is that we're going to see then a continuous stream of releases, maybe two major releases per year, like we saw in the previous regime, or maybe that's just the minimum. Maybe we're talking, you know, more releases. Maybe they'll listen to the fans a little closer, as Sharon Nelson has alluded to, you know, in interviews with the Minneapolis News and everything when they
Mhm.
took over. Um, Sharon had said that, you know, the fans are going to get the real good stuff, to quote
Yeah.
her. So we'll see if anything materializes out of that. But right now it's kind of a wait and see type of moment, because yeah, we're not sure what the game plan is. We know, I've heard from secondhand sources that the siblings, Prince's siblings, weren't cool with the direction of the super deluxe editions. Um, so we'll see if that means if there'll be any super deluxe editions going forward or not. But that's up to the new regime of the Prince estate, I guess. That's all I can say about that.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't know. I believe that we will see. I don't, you know, it's weird. I guess super deluxe editions. It's weird because it was kind of born out of the old deluxe editions. They would release a legendary album by an artist, and you would get like a remastered version of the original album, and then you get like some bonus cuts. It could be like 9 times out of 10, it was always like a second CD of just outtakes or bonus tracks. Like I got the Marvin Gaye ones. What's going on? Let's get it on. That let's see, also to the was that Midnight Love, that deluxe edition. And you had like box sets, which usually would just cover the artist's entire career, where you would get like maybe a few hits, some deep cuts, some B-sides, outtakes, vault tracks, some live tracks here and there. So, to see, we're kind of like in this age where the super deluxe edition, and it seems like there's a different one for different artists like every other day now, where before those things used to be like extremely rare. And,
Right.
I get, to kind of segue into the next topic, utilizing that, we're talking about the possibility of Purple Rain, you know, um, the deluxe edition. And I can see where not only the family members weren't happy with that release, a lot of fans weren't happy with that release, due to the way it was remastered, the choice of vault tracks. Um, I don't know. What were your thoughts? I know you mentioned earlier on social media, how you took a deep dive back into that set, and
Right.
you're looking forward to, sharing your thoughts on the show.
Right. Well, I would first of all let me say this. There's good and bad about the 2017 Purple Rain remastered and expanded, right?
Mm,
there's good points to it and there's bad points to it. I mean, and I always gotta accentuate the positive, right? That's what I'm all about. So
okay.
I'll say that I like the fact that they made an effort to put something out so soon after Prince's passing, but at on the same token, I would say that yeah, I think the majority of us, again, the majority of us can acknowledge that it was a little bit of a rush job, a little
Hmm.
bit of a, jumping the gun, you know, going with what they had at the limited resources that they had at the time in the Warner Brothers, personal Warner Brothers vault at that time, because
Hmm.
none of Prince's vaults had been, uh, cataloged or digitized at that point. So what we got was outtakes from Warner Brothers' personal vault, and I think they did the best with what they had as far as remastering everything, cleaning everything up. But it certainly isn't perfect, right? We had all those people coming out of the woodwork saying that the sound quality issues from you know um, like Computer Blue and Erotic City.
Oh yeah,
The
right.
extended
City
version
Special.
had dropouts in the audio, right, and there was tape hiss and artifacts on some of the other outtakes. So because they were culled from various sources,
Hmm.
within the Warner Brothers vault of material. But so I commend them for getting something out there when they did, but yet I I think it was a definite rush job, and I think more care and time needed to be put into such an iconic release as Purple Rain. Purple Rain is my favorite, and I don't care if that means I need to turn in my Prince fan card, but Purple Rain is my favorite album of all time by any artist, not just Prince. To me, it's a near flawless album, and yeah, I think it deserves. I think it deserves an expansive treatment. going over in my head today thinking about it, exactly how many discs would it be, comprising everything that I would want in a
Hmm.
super deluxe edition. And I haven't really calculated the number of discs in my head because I'm bad at math. That's just how us English majors tend to be. We tend to be bad at math, but yeah, I ideally I would want everything in the Purple Rain remastered and expanded that we got in 2017, plus um 7-inch edits and 12-inch edits of all the songs in the
Hmm.
film from the associated artists, The Time, Des Dickerson, um, else am I forgetting? Van Apollonia
One,
6,
6. Yep.
Vanity 6, all the 12 inches and 7-inch edits, just to be a completist. I know some people say that the edits are a waste of time, but I think as a completist, you'd love to
Yeah.
have the 7-inch and 12-inch edits on the deluxe editions, right? So I would
Right.
want all those associated artist tracks on the, you know, with the super deluxe as
Mhm.
well. And a few more discs of outtakes because I know um, I'm pretty confident. I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty confident that there's enough outtakes from Purple Rain to fill multiple discs, not just one disc of outtakes, but perhaps three or four. Um, so perhaps not extensive as outtakes as Sign of the Times Super Deluxe, but certainly enough to fill multiple discs. I know there was there was a guy, you know, on Prince.org who is a pretty avid underground collector, and he was saying that the version of Father's Song, for example, that we got on the 2017 set
Mhm.
wasn't the actual version we should have gotten. It was a
Mhm.
test version made to test out the sound of synthesizers on the
Huh.
track. And this man actually said that there is a version, a proper piano version that more closely syncs up to the version that we heard in the film that Francis
Okay.
L. was playing in the basement on the piano in the movie. Um, I've always wanted. That's another one of my holy grails is the simple, clean, full piano version of Father's Song because I just love that melody and it's so haunting and beautiful. But yeah, I found it interesting when
Mhm.
I read that, years ago on Prince.org that this version of Father's Song that we got isn't the quote unquote correct version.
Huh.
And
And-
but you could probably take that with a grain of salt. But I'm the hopeful part of me, the dreamer part of me, hopes that there is a proper, simple piano version in the vault like what we heard in the movie. And I know there's also some of my friends on social media commented on my posts and they said, don't forget about the score, the instrumental film score by the late great Michael Colombier, who did the music in conjunction with Prince. They would also like the whole score to be remastered and
Mhm.
issued on a deluxe edition as well. So we're talking
Mhm.
about all the associated artists, songs, 7 and 12-inch singles, um, multiple discs of outtakes, which I was going to mention. There's extended versions of songs like "Take Me with You," although that's a very minor extension. There's
Mhm.
an extended instrumental outro, So it's not a big, momentous, change from the release version, but still, as a completist, I would love to have that version. There's a version of the beautiful ones with extra lyrics in the hardcore, section where he's screaming his lungs out and emotional. There's an extra line in that.
I think I have that.
There's a version with there's a version of Darling Nikki with an extra bit of guitar solo before we get to the end of that song.
I used to have that one.
So there's just little minor alternate versions of Purple Rain tracks that I would love to see included on a real authentic, super deluxe, full on Purple Rain set. And then also, in addition to the music, you got to have video. And for me, I thought, why not even take it a step up from these previous super deluxe editions, right? And have two videos included in the set. And
Yeah.
I thought of something like, since Syracuse has already been Syracuse 85
Done
has already
twice.
been remastered. Yeah, done twice. So that's out. So I thought, what about the remastered video and audio of the August 3rd, 1983 First Avenue
Yeah.
gig? Have that be
Just
one
thinking
of the
about it.
videos, and then have the other video be a date from the Purple Rain tour, like say Atlanta. I'm just saying that as a random suggestion because I don't know if there's other concerts out there that are better and more unique than Syracuse and Atlanta. But just for a place filler, I'll say Atlanta 85 because I know that's out there and that exists in pretty good quality. So have those two live videos included in the Purple Rain Super Deluxe as well. So we're talking at least as many discs as Sign of the Times Super Deluxe, which was what, 8 discs
8 discs, yeah.
in total. So we're talking at least maybe 9 or 10,
Yeah.
with the two videos included, either
Or
on DVD or Blu-ray.
yeah.
So
Or I'm about to say you can probably put both shows on one Blu-ray.
yes,
Yeah, it should be enough time to
yeah, I would
do that.
imagine that. But yeah, those are my thoughts, really breaking it down. But then after I say all that, my logical brain is like, well, what's the price point on a package like that? Is that gonna break the bank for most music buyers and cause them not to purchase the set? Because I know there was an uproar online for especially around the Sign of the Times box set where the price point was um a real roadblock for people, for fans wanting to purchase the set because you know these are expensive to make, they're expensive to print and manufacture. So um you know you got to charge pretty good money for them, and there are a lot of hardcore fans. Not to say that I'm rich and that money is no object, but I I place a high premium on print stuff. So this is the first time I'm actually admitting this out loud, but I'm actually one of the people that bought the $790 uh, Prince Purple Rain motorcycle sculpted figurine, which has been delayed until New Year's Day of 2023. It was supposed to come in August, but it's now been delayed. But I actually purchased that, and it was an investment of you know about $901 all told, and that's a lot of money to invest in anything. But when it comes to prints, for me, I place a high premium anything and everything to do with Prince. So there have been some exceptions, like
Mm,
um, the Robert Whitman photo book that came out a few years ago. Um, Prince Before Fame. That was too rich for my blood at the time. That was over
mm.
$200, but and then I go and spend 900 on a Purple Rain figurine. But um, yeah, I could. I thought, I could afford it. I had been saving my money, so I thought, why not? You only live once, so you got to enjoy this life.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
um, but for me, I'm willing to pay whatever within reason for a quality product. And the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe really proved to me and showed me that at least the previous regime in the Prince estate was willing to go to great lengths to put out an amazing quality product. So if they can do this with Purple Rain for the 40th anniversary, just go out, pull out all the stops, do a
Mm.
10 to 12 disc set. I might be doing it through clenched teeth, but I'm going to pony up the cash for it. So,
Yeah.
because that's how I roll. As a hardcore fan, that's how it is.
Yeah.
I love my boy Prince, and I need to support him. So, um,
Oh yeah.
you know,
He's
but
given a lot, and I mean literally he's given a lot of himself to the fan base. And yeah, it is up to us to support it. I mean, and with that being said, everybody's, income is different, everybody's tastes are different.
right,
And so for those that feel like, oh, there's that 8 disc box set, I don't know if I can, afford that. And it's like, don't even pressure yourself. If, for somebody like us, like I said, we love the vault tracks, you know.
right.
And I know for me personally, I know sometimes the CDs are cheaper than the vinyl.
Yes,
Yeah. So for me, when it comes to like the vault tracks and all of that stuff, then I prefer buying the CD, the box set or super deluxe edition.
okay,
And then,
yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and then for like say vinyl, then I'll just purchase the original album on vinyl,
Right,
you know.
right,
And two, there are, depending on the project, I've seen sets where, yeah, you can get the 8, 9, 10 disc set of this particular super deluxe. And then they'll have like, oh, well, if you don't want all those tracks, then here you could buy this 4 disc set or 2 disc set. Or, if there are fans that just want the original album, then you can just buy the original album on CD or
right.
vinyl.
That's a good point. The previous regime of the Prince estate were very good at offering releases with various levels and various
Mm-hmm.
tiers of material. They would offer anything from, like you say, just the remastered album on its own to a
Mm-hmm.
2 disc, 4 disc, 8 disc. It doesn't matter. There was always a tier for people who could, you know, spend as much or as little as they wanted to on these releases. So it's very good to have a tier set up where, like you say, you have those options for people that want to buy just the one disc or multiple discs, and all the levels in between. So it's very important to have that
Right.
in
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, we would be categorized as, I guess, either that, the actual fan base or that category of audiophile, because that's what those super deluxe editions are for. They're for the collectors, they're for that deep cut fan, that wants everything, and especially the vault tracks or especially the live tracks.
Yeah.
And then there are fans that there are people that, say love Prince and they may have jumped off the bandwagon, whether it was after Purple Rain or whether it was after Sign of the Times
Yep.
or it was after the name change,
Yep.
but they were also music fans, and Prince was just one of those happy memories for them. And if
Right.
they lost their physical media in any way, shape, or form, or needed to upgrade it, or if they never had it, now this stuff can be available. So where you have the single disc or the 2 disc set, I think that's more for those fans, where
Right.
the bigger sets are, more for us, kind of most of the listeners on your show and my show.
Right.
We're gonna be there with our purple croutons, ready to, like, here,
Right.
take it all.
Right. Right. Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I feel the same way that you do about the state of the previous Purple Rain Super Deluxe. I do feel that it was rushed out there. And I think mainly because Warner Brothers did want to put something out even while Prince was here. So I don't know if there was this sort of tension as to, well, what are we going to include? Well, we want to include Erotic City. Maybe Prince was like, no, I don't want Erotic City on it. It may have been those little details that might have held it up. I remember Prince was kind of blaming it on Warner Brothers, like, well, why isn't this coming out?
Right. Right.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, well, you got to talk to
And
Warner Brothers. It was them.
and one thing I wanted to mention too about the 2017 set. Look, all due respect to Joshua Welton, as we're recording this on the day of his birthday, actually. So
Oh, okay. Happy
happy
birthday.
happy birthday to Joshua Welton. All due respect to you, my man, but your remaster wasn't, how do I say this in a kind way? It wasn't exactly the kind of remaster that we needed or that we deserved, because I think it was just all the levels pushed up to 11, to quote the Spinal Tap movie. And I think it was missing the nuance that, say, a remaster of 1999 or a remaster of Sign of the Times has. So I think it would require the hand of somebody like Bernie Grundman or Chris James, the excellent engineer who was actually behind the remix and remaster of Prince of the Revolution Live, the Syracuse '85 release. Uh, Shout out to Chris James.
Okay, the recent one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that was amazing. And did he also do the vinyl reissues in 2015?
Um, that I'm not sure about.
There
I'm not
was
sure about
I
that.
have to check because I did do an episode, talking about the Paisley Park remaster.
Right.
And one of the listeners mentioned that it wasn't Bernie Grutman that did those remasters, and I want to say it was Chris James. I don't know. I'll have to go review the comments on that episode
Chris
to see.
James, to my ears, did an outstanding job with the audio on the Prince of the
Yeah.
Revolution Live reissue. I mean, just outstanding. So, and I know even some of my Facebook friends disagree with me on that, but we all have our opinions, and it's cool. And like Prince says, if people are with it, that's cool. If people aren't, that's cool
Cool
too.
too.
So,
Say they're not
but
going to buy everything, but they'll buy it. They're going to buy one.
right,
Yeah.
right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
So,
yeah, so I was gonna say, yeah, but I did do an episode covering that Paisley Park remaster. And in reviewing it prior to that episode, it to me it wasn't that bad. And then I'll cut him some slack because mastering is not easy. It's
no,
it engineering alone is hard enough, to be able to work a mix board and to know the nuances of sound and how to get sounds to do certain things. It's not an easy job. And,
Right.
shout out to engineers everywhere. You guys are just as important as whoever's on the microphone or whoever's playing the instrument, when it comes to making records. And I would say, if he was under Prince's mentorship, maybe he was trying to train him to do the best job that he could. And it's not bad, I guess, if it's his first time out the box doing it.
Right.
I know in the
Right.
interviews, Prince has praised Joshua for his mixing skills. Now, mixing and mastering are two different things. And like I said, mastering is really not easy. I
Right.
always say on this show, if you're a musician and you're recording and you want somebody to master your stuff, don't fall for those guys that go, I can master in 15 minutes. And it's like
Yeah.
what you said, all they're going to do is just crank it up to 11 and, set a few frequencies here and there. And it's like, well, that may not be the best thing for your recording.
Right.
And two, sometimes in a lot of cases, remastering doesn't always make it better.
Right.
Sometimes, if you bought a CD in 1980, well, Prince is an exception. That stuff definitely needed to be remastered for sure. But there
Sure.
are albums that first time out the gate, before there was 24-bit mastering and the technology that we have now, that sound immaculate on CD. And then when they've gone to remaster something in 24-bit, or if they made it louder, if they changed this, it really isn't as good as, or the CD before, or
Right.
original
Right.
analog master of the vinyl.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because there was just that one album. Now we don't know if Prince let Joshua Welton remaster, say, Parade, because apparently that was rumored to have been in the can and ready to go.
Yep.
As well. So
Yep.
did he have a hand in that, which we probably won't see? That probably won't see the light of day if Parade is ever released as a super deluxe edition. We won't see the Joshua Welton remaster on
No.
that one. I can guarantee that. Like I said, props to him. Like I said, it's not an easy job, and to me, it didn't sound that bad. But I think going forward,
It's not bad, but for me, it just doesn't have the nuance that, especially the dynamics, the marked difference between louds and softs, on a
Mm,
song like, say, The Beautiful Ones. Um, it just
mm,
seems louder overall rather than, sonically dynamic,
mhm.
to me, to my ears, but
Yeah,
what
to
do I
me,
know? So,
yeah, to me, and I also did the CD versus vinyl
okay.
on that too. And yeah, that was one where the vinyl definitely won the
Yep.
battle with that.
Yep.
That's I'm trying to think what else. Now, when Doves Cried, there was no difference to me.
Okay.
I didn't really hear a significant difference. Let's Go Crazy. I think again the vinyl won out. Let's see, Computer Blue, Darling Nikki. The Paisley Park remaster sounds better in the car
Yep.
than it does on, say playing it on your CD player at home.
Yep. I can see that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, and again, it's all subjective. Musical tastes are subjective. What we like, somebody else might not like, and vice versa. But I do believe going forward that once we hit 2024, there'll be the Bernie Grubman remaster of the original Purple Rain, the outtakes. I would say, just whoever's curating this is just read Dwayne Tudor's book. And I would
Yes.
want everything that's, related to the actual, like while he was recording things for Purple Rain,
Right.
those are the things that I want included in that Super Deluxe. Because I think that was
Yes.
kind of one of the like Dance Electric wasn't part of Purple Rain.
Yeah.
We can, we that wasn't part of Purple Rain. That was recorded,
After. Yeah.
January 31st, 1984. The movie had come and gone, and the tour was in full swing. So, while those were nice to have, I mean, I love both of those songs, and I'm glad that we have official versions of that. But to me, it doesn't go with, in fact, a lot of those songs didn't go with the Purple Rain, I guess, vibe or
Right.
symmetry, the symmetry of it.
Right. Right.
So yeah, like you said, with the versions of Father's song, you can do a version 1 and version 2 and put that on a Super Deluxe. Yeah,
Yes.
you can do I don't have to break out the book, but yeah, just or say if there's a Prince vocal of Ice Cream Castles or a Prince vocal of The Bird, that should be on the Super Deluxe.
Yes.
And I would say to the estate, don't be afraid of repetition. Yes, we do have originals. And while you have Jungle Love, you have Sex Shooter on that compilation, still put that on the Super Deluxe of Purple Rain as well. Because
Yes.
I'll tell you, Jimi Hendrix wasn't on the planet long, but he had a lot of material that he recorded. And when I buy a lot of, Hendrix stuff, whether it's live or whether, it's studio material that they found or that they've held on to for a long time, a lot of those compilations, there's probably 1 or 2 songs that I could say just about almost every one, it's the same song. It's not the same version of it, but it's the same song. It's going to be Hear My Train a Coming, or it's going to be Red House, but
Right.
it's right. But
And
it's
even on a package like the Beatles anthology, which I consider to be one of the best anthology releases ever done, there were multiple versions and multiple takes of the same song, and
mhm.
they even included the false starts, which were really fun to hear.
Yeah.
Those moments in the studio like that. But yeah, multiple versions is not a bad thing whatsoever.
Mm.
It actually makes you, realize the creative process that it took to formulate these songs, right? So you're in the studio and you're a part of that experience, hearing the various versions of the same song and hearing how it took shape and achieved its final form. So
Mhm.
it's part of it's that insight into the creative process, which I think is really cool. So yeah, I would love to. I wouldn't be opposed to having multiple versions of the same track, the same song on a super deluxe at all. And like you say, even repeating from originals, a song like Jungle Love, I wouldn't be opposed to that because it's like you say, it's part of the era. It's part of the fabric of the Purple Rain era.
Right.
So it deserves to be included. So um definitely.
Yeah. So hopefully the estate will be listening. They're taking notes. But they got to pay us. Or we'll take some free. We'll take a free Super Deluxe edition. We'll do a review
Exactly.
of it.
Maybe some free t-shirts or something
Something.
too.
Yep. So send those cards and letters, estate, to send it to Chris and Richard.
Exactly.
So yeah. So, but we'll leave that open to our listeners. Let us know what you think. I mean, it's 2024. I would say I'm 98% certain that they will do a much more expanded Purple Rain Super Deluxe.
I mean, let me put it this way. It would totally surprise and shock and disappoint me if they didn't, right? I
Right.
mean, it seems like the most obvious move, the most obvious thing to materialize since somebody came up with sliced bread. I mean, come on, there's got to be a 40th anniversary of Purple Rain. It's
Okay.
got to happen, and if it doesn't, it's a crime. So,
Well, I'll say this: worst case scenario, 50th anniversary.
right, right,
So keep taking my vitamins. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, keep taking and trying to stay in shape and
yep.
I'm gonna have to start eating healthier, making healthier choices so we
Me
can
too,
be,
me
yeah. So,
too.
so let's see, what is that? 2024. So 2034. Yeah, we gotta be ready.
Yeah,
We gotta be ready. But
something big is coming, right? Like you did that advertisement for the MPG Music Club. Something big is
big
coming,
scope.
2034.
Yeah.
So we got to be here for it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that most definitely. But something we don't have to wait too long for would be the induction of Jammin' Lewis into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So this news,
Woo!
yes, so this news kind of dropped for me just while preparing for the show. So this was like a last minute topic insertion for this. There was an interview in Bill or on Billboard.com. I haven't had a chance to read all of it, but it was just kind of getting information on what the date of the induction ceremony was going to be, which is November 5th. And it basically the interview is really just covering Jammin' Lewis's history in the music business from their earliest days in Minneapolis, like how they became musicians. They do mention Prince in the interview. They also talk about working with Janet and other artists as well. So it looks to be a pretty interesting read. So I can't wait to go back in and really put my focus into it and read the whole thing. But listeners of this show, from the very beginning, I've been campaigning to get, well, the entire membership of the time into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I say we got 2 down. We got 5 more to go.
There you
5 more.
go.
Yeah, but this is a very, very, prestigious honor. Um, you know, they, for the 80s and the 90s and, even beyond that, like later work with, with Usher, Jam and Lewis have changed the R&B, not only the R&B landscape, but the pop landscape. Janet Jackson, Human League, SOS Band, Alexander O'Neal, Sherelle, New Edition, Sounds of Blackness. I remember back in, I think it was 83 and, finding out that they had been fired from the time. And I was like, number one, I was devastated because I liked the time and I just knew that was the beginning of the end with that. But there was an interview that they did. I think it was Black Beat magazine. And they were talking about, their work with the SOS band. And I think not too long after that, I think it had just come out or it had been out for a while. And, I wore the grooves off of that. I bought like the 12-inch single to that and wore the grooves off of it. And then hearing the stuff off of that On the Rise album, Tell Me If You Still Care, that track, that's one of my favorite ballads, of all time. They pioneered the use of the 808 drum machine on that track. So it's that, the work with Janet with Control, Rhythm Nation. Um, the previous episode talking about, Velvet Rope, you know, that being re-released, and just what an amazing, amazing album that is. You know, I mean, I enjoyed it back in, you know, back in the 90s, but hadn't really played it that much since then. But to revisit it since it had been re-released, you know, that's, you know, Jam and Lewis at work on the production of that. And it's such a sonically pleasing record. That is, when you go back and listen to it. So, you know, yeah, definitely props to Jam and Lewis for being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The ceremony is November 5th. I don't know when they'll actually broadcast it. It'll probably be like on HBO or HBO Max. Probably by like January or something. But I'm sure they'll announce the actual broadcast date where we can actually watch the program. But, you know, Chris, hearing that news, you know, what are your thoughts? What are, you know, memories of Jam and Lewis or favorite Jam and Lewis productions? We could do a whole episode on that
I
alone.
mean, Control is one of those albums that ranks right up there with some of Prince's best stuff for me. I mean, just an iconic album, and it's really where Janet really, uh, you know, came onto my radar with that album, and I have a special place in my heart for that album. And
Hmm.
Rhythm Nation, you know, just a brilliant, brilliant concept album, full of,
Yeah.
you know, deep social commentary of the times, and just, you know, two absolutely iconic Janet records that I absolutely love. And shout out to Monty Moore too for writing
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
Pleasure Principle, which is probably my favorite Janet song of all time. I just love that song.
Mhm.
So yeah, Jam and Lewis, absolute legends, absolute icons, well deserved. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Yes, yes. Congratulations. Yeah, and like you say, shout out to Monty Moore as well. Um, Also, someone too that doesn't get a lot of props and should also get paid as well, and that's Jelly Bean Johnson.
Oh
You know,
yes,
yeah. You know, You Can Be Mine on the Control album, Black Cat on Rhythm Nation.
yes,
Yeah, that's why I say they, again, obviously Jam and Lewis, because I mean they've set records, they've broken records, not literally break records, but but they've really earned their place in musical history. And not to say that the other members of the time weren't relevant. They, definitely have found success after being in the time. Morris Day has a strong solo career. Jesse Johnson, strong solo career, and props to him as a producer also. Like I said, Monty, Jelly Bean, Jerome. There's categories in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame where individually they can qualify, or even as the time. Because the argument is that, oh well, Prince played all the music, or it was Prince and Morris doing all the music. And that's true, but as a live ensemble, the caliber of musicians that they are, there's categories that they can be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a live unit, as the band. They set trends as a live act, and they were forced to be reckoned with as a live act as well. I would say still to this day. So
yeah.
yeah.
And they were they were one of the only, if not the only, entity that put the fear of God in Prince himself, as far as being an intimidating factor
Mhm.
for Prince. So, and that to me, that says volumes. So yeah, the time definitely deserved to be inducted. I would say.
Yeah. Well, like I said, hopefully one day, hopefully sooner than later. And hopefully, while all seven are still here with us, that is something that I would like to definitely see. But again, like I said, this isn't taken away from the shine on Jam and Lewis like I said, they were let go of the time and, you know, could have faded into obscurity after that. But, you know, they had a determination and a drive and a passion to become producers and songwriters, and, you know, had some great material, you know, to get them to that point, and, you know, to open those doors to get them to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So yes, definitely congratulations, Jam and Lewis. Can't wait to watch the ceremony whenever it's broadcast. Like I said, I guess HBO or HBO Max. So I guess I need to keep my subscription going for a little while longer.
Me too. Me
Ooh.
too.
All right, so we're going to move on to the flashback segment of the show. And that's where we just kind of pick a moment in Prince history, or just kind of look back on a certain project. In this case, this week is going to be, for no particular reason, Around the World in a Day. I remember in the height of all the Purple Rain stuff going on, I think, let's see, I was probably, by the time I read this, maybe my 25th time seeing Purple Rain in the theater.
Oh, wow.
Let's see, I know that I think it was December. The tour came to the St. Louis Arena, used to be called the Checker Dome back in the day. So there was that. I had Purple Rain, I had Glamorous Life, Ice Cream Castles, had borrowed Apollonia 6, made a cassette of that from somebody. And then there was an issue of Rolling Stone. I can't remember who was on the cover, what the main stories were, but their random notes section had covered the listening party for Around the World in a Day. And it broke down, you know, what the songs were, you know, that journalist's interpretation of what the songs were going to sound like. And I was excited because the word, and this is the first time I've heard this word used anywhere, and it's not really a word, but somehow it's become an adjective over the years, and that's the word Beatlesque. And that word was used in that article. And I'm like, huh. So Prince is inspired the Beatles, not like the Beatles, but what's Prince going to do with it? So that made it kind of my most anticipated release. And I guess for the mission statement for that album, I guess I was one of those to where that helped him accomplish that, because it was like, yeah, Purple Rain had become this huge thing. Like I said, I was like on my 25th, 26th, 27th time seeing Purple Rain in the theater. And I think it was on its way to video cassette at that point. And, you know, it was everywhere. It was like Thriller. It was like everywhere in 1984. And, you know, here's something different where Prince is going kind of really left field. You know, it wasn't even going back to 1999. It wasn't going back to Dirty Mind. He really created a piece that really challenged, you know, the listener, you know, fan base included, and the ones that stuck with the album. You know, in a way, I felt it wasn't as strong as, say, like 1999 or even Purple Rain, but it was like, okay, this is the point where I realized you're not going to get the same Prince album twice ever. And I love the album based on that. Fast forward to now, you know, where people talk about, oh, I want a Parade Super Deluxe. Oh, I want a Diamonds and Pearls Super Deluxe. I want a Symbol album Super Deluxe, or Musicology Super Deluxe. You know, going back to what we were saying about how the tracks recorded during the time of Purple Rain, you know, for the movie, where those belong on the set. Look at everything that was done towards the end of recording the Purple Rain soundtrack into the rest of 1984 and
Right.
some of 1985. And
Right.
to me, this would be more interesting than, well, Parade is in the class by itself because it's so eclectic, because it's almost avant-garde in a lot of places. But to me, Around the World in a Day would be probably just as good, if not better, than a Purple Rain Super Deluxe. And it would be just as good, if not better, than a Parade Super Deluxe, just on the strength of you got the family material that's on it. Probably early 1985, then you would have like the Romance 1600 material, maybe Prince originals of that stuff. Maybe the beginnings of Maserati, the beginnings of Jill Jones. Like I said, just the tracks and the B-sides for Around the World in a Day. And I'm sure if we go back into the book, which is the beauty of Dwayne's books, you go back in, you'll probably discover something you didn't catch the first time you read it. So there might be some tracks in there that I can't even think of that would make it work. But I would say, yeah, this is an album that has definitely grown with me over the years, where back in 1985, I was like, oh, she's always in my hair. Well, why couldn't that have been on the album? Yeah, they could have taken off, they could have taken off this song and put it on there, or Paisley Park, they could have taken that off and put She's Always in My Hair on it. But now I enjoy listening to it more than I did then. And I enjoyed it then too, but it didn't last. I would say it was like probably by the summer, because it came out in spring, I think. But by the summer, I was just really more into the B-sides and maybe one or two of the tracks on the actual album on it. But now listening to it, like, of course, obviously Pop Life still stays with me, but I play the extended versions more than I play the album version. Raspberry Beret, of course, obviously still holds up. The Ladder's still strong. Tambourine is still pretty good to listen to. Like I said, Paisley Park has grown with me. Condition of the Heart. I think even from the beginning of 1985 to now, is just my love for that song. Just, it never changes. It never changes. So I don't know. Like I said, I think Around the World in a Day, solid album. Like I said, he accomplished what he set out to do, which is, okay, Purple Rain is too big, so I'm not going to try to do Purple Rain 2. I'm not going to try to do 1999 Part 2. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And like I said, for those of us that stuck with it, here we are. We're doing podcasts and still buying Prince records. We didn't jump off the bandwagon like a lot of people did at that point. And I think it's, I think it's pretty solid. It's a good one to have in your archives. So Chris, I don't know, what are your memories and thoughts of Around the World Today?
Okay, I should preface this by saying that I'm probably going to make you and your listeners feel very old, but Around the World in a Day came out when I was 5 years old.
Yeah, I was 19.
I remember the one thing that I remember most about that album and that time period was it was my first exposure to something, strange and curious and wonderful called a B-side. I had never heard of a B-side before in my life until I dropped the needle on She's Always in My Hair, the B-side of Raspberry Beret. And to me, that will always and forever be my number one favorite B-side of all time, bar none, hands down. Just a tremendous,
Yeah.
tremendous song. And I was with you, Richard. I was like, why is this not on the proper album? It should be not only an album track, but it should have been a single in
the
its
A
own
side.
right.
Yeah, should have been the A side.
Yes. So I love that song. I love, the B side of Pop Life, which was Hello. which
Oh
was
yeah,
in
yeah.
reference to the whole fallout with the We Are the World thing, which is a tumultuous period that is detailed really well in Dwayne Tudall's book. Um, but yeah, I love those B sides. And to this day, the the best Prince B sides, in my opinion, come from Around the World in a Day. Um, so yeah, that's my major emotional, spiritual connection to this album, if you will, and it's always been it's always been one of my favorites. You know, I I would have to go back and look at because I ranked all 39 or 42 or how many of them there are, official Prince albums, and Around the World in a Day has got to be in my top 10, I think. And it's one of those albums that it sort of belongs in its own universe, and it's more similar to me. It's more similar to Purple Rain than you would think on the surface.
Mm,
I mean, there are a lot of parallels, and like a song like Temptation, has a parallel with a track like Darling Nikki, or you know one of the more rock edged type of tracks, and like Paisley Park has a similar vibe to Take Me With You and things like that. And the latter, obviously, being a
mm,
ballad, that sort of evokes Purple Rain just a little bit.
mm,
So there are more similarities, um, deep down than you would actually see on the surface. But on the flip side of that, I appreciate it. Like you, Richard, you were saying that you never get the same Prince album twice, and I would just so and I remain so proud of Prince for constantly reinventing himself and switching up
mm,
the textures and flavors of his music, and the images, and changing his physical appearance, his look from album to album and era to era, and the music as well changed and evolved.
mm,
So you never get the same Prince album twice, and I love him for that. And Around the World in a Day definitely is not Purple Rain Part Two, um, at least on the surface. And I always admired Prince for that, and still do to this day. So yeah, it's one of my favorites. I just love the psychedelic imagery, and the color schemes and everything associated with the album, the artwork, the fonts that are used on the album. It's just its own unique vibe, and I just love that album, and it holds a dear place in my heart. So yeah, a super deluxe edition for Around the World in a Day would be really nice, or maybe just a 2 or 3 disc edition with all the 7 and 12 inch edits, because I, like Richard, back in the day, he said he got more into the 12 inch extended versions, right? And I've I've done that in recent years. I've done an album sequence where I swap out the album versions for the extended versions, and I throw it in the B sides on the
mm.
same playlist. So it's like a literally an extended version of the album, of the proper album, and that's how I tend to listen to it now. So yeah, great iconic album, and yeah, it's definitely its own vibe
Mm.
for sure to it. But yeah, a lot of great memories with that record.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember being part of a group where, just kind of explaining, how in some ways it was really nothing new under the sun, but it was
Right,
just that what Prince was putting, he was putting himself into it. So there was a
right,
point where I played, a track from Around the World in a Day, and then I would play a track from Sergeant Pepper just to show the similarities
Yeah.
to it. Because, you know, like Pop Life kind of reminded me of Lovely Rita, maybe to an extent,
Yep.
maybe later on Instant Karma or something like that. Because just with the piano
Yep.
and everything, it, you know, just had that vibe.
Yep.
You had Around the World in a Day, and I played Within You, Without You, because it had the, you know, kind of the Hindu
The
music
sitar.
influence. Yep, had that
Yep.
influence in it.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's just
Yep.
that, yeah, you know, there that difference between, you know, influence and, you know, outright stealing. And it was just like, no, you know, Prince didn't just, he didn't copy the Beatles. It was just that that was, well, he says it wasn't the influence, but again, you know, you play those records back to back, it's there, but it's what
Yeah.
he did with it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
He put he put the Prince spin on the Beatles flavor.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. He put the chili sauce on it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. Again, state if you're listening, you know, that would be funny if they would just come out of left field and that's the first thing that they would release.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's
release it like Prince did the original album with very little promotion whatsoever. Just drop it on us and
you know that a lot of, well, not a lot of people, but if you notice, like with Janet with the Velvet Rope, there was no advance warning that was coming out, and I don't even know if there's any physical media. It was just like, okay, it's going to be on your streaming services, and it was like within a week. Like I think it was like announced maybe on a Monday, and then it dropped that last Friday on the 7th.
I would
I think.
love the Prince estate to do, a similar approach to that with releases going forward because it would be in the same spirit of the sort of hit and run style uh releases that Prince would do later in his career where he'd drop a 30-second snippet of a new track on his Twitter account at 3
Mm.
a.m. in the morning. And I was a night owl at that time. My sleep schedule was completely turned upside down. So I would be awake and online at 3 in the morning. And here would come Prince, with his Twitter account, dropping a 30-second snippet of Free Yourself or, I'm sorry, Stare, the track
Oh yeah,
Stare.
yeah.
He dropped that at 3 in the morning one morning on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is so exciting!" It's really it gets your adrenaline going and gets you excited for you know the next new thing that's coming up. So that would be a wonderful approach if the estate would adopt that going
Mm.
forward.
Yeah. Now, of course, some things though, I need my Amazon pre-order. That gives me time to save up the purple croutons. But yeah, but I would say, yeah, some things should be a surprise. I
Yeah,
mean, it'll be there.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's Around the World in a Day. And then we'll move on to the final segment of the show, which is our spotlight. And again, that's you know, whether it's an associated artist or another project, or sometimes even a release that hasn't been released that should be. And this week, this is something that at least we do have a physical vinyl, we have a physical CD for, and that's Musicology. But I would want a Blu-ray of either the, you know, opening night at the Staples Center of the tour or the Detroit show on a Blu-ray.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, because for you know, for listeners not familiar with that particular era of Prince, um, Prince wasn't really silent, but to the mainstream, this was like a comeback. You know, he was doing interviews. The tour consisted of a lot of, you know, the hits. Um, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that same year. He was on the Grammys, and that was kind of like the first, you know, time, the mainstream had really seen him in a long time, was that Grammy performance with Beyonce. But then the next month after that was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, and then the month after that was the kickoff of the tour, the release of the Musicology album. The MPG Music Club was in full swing. That especially that year, with the preferred seating, I remember getting the tickets for like $75. Ended up in the second row. I mean, it was, that was amazing. The tour was amazing. I also went to the simulcast with that Staples Center. Went to one of the Regal theaters to go see that, because that was a month before the tour. Actually, or was it? Was it the? No, it wasn't a month before the tour. It wasn't long before the tour, but that opening night at the Staples Center, and then that was simulcast in all the movie theaters across the country. Um, yeah, but it was at the Regal, and I saw that, and actually that show and the concert got the free Musicology CD. Kind of with the little cardboard cover. It didn't have the booklet, but hey, I still dropped my purple croutons when the CD was actually in the stores, and you got the booklet with that and everything. So I mean, that was, probably ranks up with anything from the 80s or even the 90s. At that point, is like kind of one of the most magical you know Prince eras, just because it felt like he had overcome a lot. He was making deals on his own terms, with major labels. He was maybe still fighting for his Warner Brothers masters, but when it came to doing a distribution deal with a major label, held on to that. Changed the game with the CD being built into the ticket price, to where the industry got mad and shut that down. So yeah, I mean, and like I said, the tour was just amazing. And like I said, I've seen that Staples Center at the theater, and I also have a copy of the DVD, but it should be released officially.
Yes.
And even clips I've seen of the Detroit show. I know we always default to Detroit because I think he put where he gave 110% just on a normal day. Detroit, it would be 1,000% every time, because that was the first city that embraced Prince, from For You and even the second album. They were the first city to really catch on, before any of us. That, oh, this dude Prince, okay, he's funky, okay, he's got it. So yeah, I would say in this case, yeah. So I would like to see whether it's a standalone Blu-ray of either Staples Center, Detroit show. It could be any musicology, the best of the best of those.
And don't forget, there's also, in connection with that, there's also the unreleased documentary that was supposed to officially come out but never did, called Life of the Party,
Oh
which was
yeah,
sort of a behind the scenes of the musicology tour. That would be great to see an official release as well, maybe bundled with one of those shows, either the Detroit show or the Staples Center show.
yeah, and and there are artists that have Blu-ray releases where, yeah, it does come with like a documentary, or it's bundled with a documentary
Yep.
as well. So yeah, I think that would be a great idea. I've only seen like little clips of that. Is the whole thing in circulation
Yes,
amongst
the whole
the
thing is in circulation.
yeah, amongst the collectors?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And there's no bootlegs here, right?
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, that'd be a good idea. But you said the whole thing is out,
Yeah.
available. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, I've only seen like little bits and pieces.
I've o-
Actually,
I've only seen little bits and pieces as well. I've never sat down and really watched the whole thing straight through, but it is out there.
yeah, I've seen there's a clip there backstage, and it's kind of like a, if it was unfolding in real time, it would be a leak of Black Sweat,
Yeah.
because he's, clowning around backstage, but he's
Yep.
clowning around singing the lyrics to Black Sweat
Yep.
and that. And then of course the tragic footage of, where they were in, I think it was New Orleans, for the Essence Festival, and it was just off of when John Blackwell's daughter had
Oh
died.
wow.
Yeah. Because
Wow.
I remember I was, because like I said, I'd seen the musicology show here in St. Louis, and about maybe that next month or so, he was due to be in Chicago, and I went with a bunch of people to go to that show. And we got there like maybe a couple of hours before the show was supposed to start. And as we were on our way, because like where we were all staying, it wasn't that far from the arena. And as we were walking to the arena, we started seeing people walking back. And we're like, well, why are people leaving? And we found out that the show had been canceled in Chicago because of the tragedy
Right.
there. And I think by the time they decided to, regroup, and after they given John Blackwell time to, kind of mourn and grieve, then they started to do the show, Essence Festival. And then to cheer him up, they wore these like costumes and stuff. Prince was in disguise. So that footage,
Hmm.
yes, I've seen that footage of it. Yeah, he's
Nice.
kind of, I think he was on the roller skates
Yep.
running around. He had the wig and the beard, the
Yep.
fake beard. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that
Yeah.
that would be a good, yeah, that would be good to bundle with that. Maybe some of that'll turn up in that Netflix documentary,
I
probably.
hope so. I hope so.
Yeah. And then of course that would lead to doing, releasing that full documentary. And
Right.
like I said, maybe releasing an actual musicology tour.
Right.
Um, you know, DVD, Blu-ray.
Or for 2024 will be the 20th anniversary. So maybe if Paisley Park plans on doing a celebration, maybe they could take a musicology show and do one of the Prince live on stage presentations that they've done, you know, in previous celebrations. Maybe they could do it for a musicology show
Mm.
in honor of the 20th anniversary. So just an idea. If the estate wants to hire me to consult on things like this, I'd be happy. I'd work for peanuts. Just give me free music and swag. That's all I need. I don't need money. So,
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, just give us something to review.
exactly.
You will have our unbiased opinion.
Exactly.
If it's good, we'll celebrate it. But it's just like, nah, y'all need to come out with something a little bit better next time. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I remember the musicology era and I was so happy and so thrilled because like you said, it was sort of Prince's rebirth in the mainstream after, those down years in the mid 90s when he was the symbol and everybody thought he was crazy for changing his name to a
Mm,
symbol and going to war with Warner Brothers and kind of fell out of public favor over that. But 2004 was like his rebirth or reintroduction to the mainstream. And I was so happy to see that. And
yeah.
I remember seeing Prince and the band perform the title track on the Tonight Show
Hmm.
with Jay Leno, and he announced the tour. And my very first concert in my entire life was the previous tour, the One Night Alone tour. And so when he announced the musicology tour, I was really excited to potentially go and see that tour, but unfortunately I never got to see any of the shows on that tour. But yeah, tremendous tour, like you said, a very, very healthy focus on the hits and just a celebration of not only his return to the mainstream eye, but also I would say was the beginning of his emergence as sort of an elder statesman of rock and roll. You know,
Mm,
he sort of cemented his status as an statesman of rock and roll with his introduction into the Hall of Fame and all that the same year. So yeah, very, very memorable times in that era. And I like the album. I slightly prefer the next album, 3121, to the
mm,
Musicology album, but I like a lot of the tracks on Musicology. And I just remember I thought it was so cool that, you know, his strategy of giving away the album, you know, as part of the ticket price for the live show. I thought that was such a cool way to introduce people to the album at the time. And another example of Prince's, you know, innovative spirit and his forward thinking in terms of, you know, finding alternate ways to distribute music and get music to the fans. I
mm.
just thought it was a really cool thing to do, um, to get the music out there
Yeah,
in that
and
way.
yeah, and that was an idea he had, back in the 90s,
Yeah,
94. Is that Vibe magazine article. He talks about that. And I think a lot of interviews in that period, a couple of them, I remember him mentioning that, like, well, what if we build it into the ticket price? What if there was something, underneath the seats when you got there or something? So yeah,
yeah,
so it was good to see, fast forward 10 years later to see him actually get to do that. And yeah, for people that were like, oh, he's crazy for changing his name, just, those, everything about 2004 put an end to all of that, to
yeah,
where, you know, now, we understand what that was about. And to see him slowly over the years, benefit from from winning that battle. You
right,
Sad he couldn't enjoy the master tapes, as far as the Warner Brothers stuff. He only had
right,
them two
right,
years at that point. But everything else, as far as, like I said, everything like musicology, to go to a Sony and say, hey, distribute this, but I own the master for it.
right,
Then the next couple of years, 3121, to go to Universal and say, hey, distribute this album, but I keep the master. Thereby, he kept the lion's share of the profits.
right,
And,
right.
and both of those albums were, on the charts, back at the top of the charts.
Yeah. And I just remember I I've been I watched the slave trade documentary again recently about his battle with Warner's in the 90s, and one of the guys they interviewed, I can't remember who he was or who he worked for, but he said it was so cool how Prince was so far ahead of his time in terms of project predicting the trajectory of the music business and how you know releasing music would play out, you know, in you know years ahead of what Prince was already seeing in his mind's eye, you know. So just thinking in terms of Prince as a person, as a businessman with tremendous foresight into all those areas of how to distribute music, and then towards the end of his life, he was getting into, you know, peer to peer, um, you know, distribution of his music, where
Mm,
letting fans themselves distribute his physical media. And he just had so much foresight and so much uh, innate knowledge of where the music industry was going
mm.
and where it was headed. So um, yeah, it's mind blowing and fascinating to think about for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and like I said, don't forget the MPG Music Club. It had been around for a few years before that.
Yes,
And, at that time I didn't have like my own computer. So I missed a lot of that. A lot of the music, the audio shows, and a lot of the tracks that were released, especially like one song, I missed out on that. And that's one of my favorite um, Prince tracks, period.
yes,
Yeah, that needs to see some kind of physical release or
it
even
does.
digital, bring it back on digital.
I don't
But
know. I don't know if you know this, Richard, but I did a whole entire podcast with Mr. C. Lee McGinnis on one song. So I don't know if you saw that or not, but yeah, check
okay,
it out. But
yeah,
yeah, it's one of those releases that for a lot of people, flew under the radar, and it's kind of been forgotten about if it was known about in the first place, which not a lot of people know about it as far as I know. But yeah, it's one of those tracks that definitely needs to be experienced for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. It's an amazing track. Some of you guys out there might have heard it, but I think it might be circulating somewhere. But if you can find it, definitely check that out. Yeah, that definitely deserves to see the light of day.
It's
But
it's on YouTube. The Prince Online Museum website has a YouTube channel, and it's on their YouTube channel. So
oh wow, okay,
yeah,
nice. And was it because was there a video to that of like maybe like a
um,
like it was like a lyric video?
yes,
Yeah.
there is
See,
actually, and
Prince.
that's actually the video that is on YouTube. It's the lyric video that
Okay.
was on Prince's website on New Year's Day of 2000.
Yeah. See,
So
Prince invents the lyric video. See, again, another example of him being ahead of his time.
exactly,
Yeah. Um,
exactly.
but yeah, I was with the MPG Music Club. By the time I jumped on, it was like shortly before the pre-sale for the tickets for the Musicology tour. But I mean, again, you had all this stuff going on, and on top of that, I mean, he dropped like what 7 albums on the MPG Music Club.
Yeah,
Was that same? I think it was at the same week.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I know. I
Yeah.
was okay. I got to get this one too. I don't know how much I spent on those, but I think I got them a Slaughterhouse Chocolate Invasion, One Night Alone. I think I got them all.
Oh,
That
yeah, I remember I didn't have a computer the first year of MPG Music Club, but I hopped on in the second year, and I actually got tickets to the One Night Alone tour and was able to attend the sound check in Seattle, Washington on the One Night
oh,
Alone
nice.
tour because of the MPG Music Club. So that was a really great, blessed time to be a Prince fan in the MPG Music
Mhm.
Club era. And
Yeah.
that's probably my number one thing on the very tip top of my wish list is for the MPG Music Club to be resurrected as a platform.
Mhm.
Because although we can't get, you know, things like, seating, premium seating for concerts anymore, it can still be an avenue to distribute, like we were saying, the you know, studio tracks and live tracks and
Mhm.
videos and all kinds of content that the people in the fan community myself and Richard included, I'm sure, are all clamoring for.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I would definitely support it. And, if they do continue, say, celebration, I know those tickets can be pretty pricey, but maybe they
yes,
might build something to where, okay, you join the MPG Music Club, then, might get a little break on tickets to celebration, or,
yes,
or some of the events surrounding celebration.
yes,
So yeah, that'd
yes.
be a good idea.
And I'm lucky in that respect because I live in Minnesota, about an hour and a half away from Minneapolis. So
Okay.
I'm a bit luckier than most in that respect. But yeah, that would be great to do tie-ins with celebration and local events in Minneapolis, and even events in larger cities like the Prince the Experience in Chicago right now, the exhibit. It would be nice to have discounts for things like that.
Hmm.
Um, the immersive experience,
Yeah.
um, which I'm having issues with my handicapped van right now, so unfortunately I can't take a big road trip to Chicago. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping I'm hoping it'll eventually come to Minneapolis or somewhere near Minneapolis, but yeah, um, discounts on things like that would be definitely, good things to offer in
Hmm.
conjunction with the music and live videos and things like that.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, the MPG Music Club, it needs to come back. That's
Yeah.
number one. That's number one on my list of wishes and priorities for the estate. Um, get an online distribution uh, model out there so we can have uh, freer access to the vault. And I'm not saying I want everything all at once because I don't want to exhaust the vault,
Right.
but just, you know, give us a little bit at a time and we'll be happy. So uh, that's all I'll say about that.
Oh yeah. Yep. So all right, listeners, send your cards and your letters, write your congressman, write your senator, tell them we want the MPG Music Club, we want it back.
Yeah.
And you know, bring it back to
Return Return of the Bump Squad, right?
yep, there you go. Oh, that's the track there too. Yeah, that needs to be re-released too.
Yes,
Oh,
it does.
yeah.
All the all the side projects and all the protege albums, they need to be remastered and re-released, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. That's probably 10, 20 years down the road. Of course, now that I say that, they'll surprise us and release Ice Cream Castles in 2 years. So it
I hope so. Yeah.
might happen.
To to kind of bring it all back, to bring it all back home.
Yep.
You know, 2024. Yeah, I would like, yeah, Purple Rain, get its super deluxe, reissue the original album, CD. And yeah, I was thinking about, a couple of episodes before where again, the previous regime of the estate, blocked Morris Day from using that. Thereby, we didn't get a chance to get What Time Is It on its anniversary, and Vanity Six on its anniversary. And I figure, now with this, the family and Primary Wave involved, hopefully they can fix that and settle that. Yeah, probably the first thing they'll do now at this stage, yeah, release Ice Cream Castles along with Purple Rain and Apollonia 6, and do that. And then maybe the next year, then, What Time Is It? Then Vanity Six
Yep.
with that. So
Yep.
I hope so. Definitely hope
Yeah,
so.
they're really there's really a prime opportunity to make 2024 a huge year in the history of Prince releases and Prince fandom. So I'm really hoping the powers that be for the new regime at the estate are listening to us and people like us who really want to make this a landmark year in Prince history. So because it would be a shame not to capitalize it because it's right there. You know, it's right in front of their noses. So it's a prime opportunity to do something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, definitely. Listen to the fans. You know, we'll be there to support it. You know, and a lot of us, we have diverse tastes in things, and that's fine. But I think collectively we agree, you know, whatever it is the estate puts out, you know, it should be with, you know, careful thought, you know, emphasis on the quality of it. And like I said, regardless of what it is, we'll be there. A lot of us, like I said, we've had a lot of decades unfold in real time. So it's not just being stuck in the 80s or whatever. It's, you know, like that's where we all grew up, you know, whether we were 5 at the time or college or high school, whatever, you know, it's
yeah,
that was our, you know, launching point, and everything that has come since, it's always been interesting, always been a surprise. So yeah, definitely whatever they decide to put out, we'll be there to support it as long as it's good. And
yeah,
as long as the quality is there, we'll be there with our purple croutons.
yep.
All right, and that's gonna end this episode of Amari Purple Talk. I'd like to thank Chris Johnson for being on the show. Chris, tell us where we can find you on social media and find the Purple Nights podcast.
Well, my my personal Twitter page is a little complicated to explain, but I'll try to explain it. It's art official age, but the O in official is a 0. So it's
Okay,
artificial age with the O is a 0 on Twitter. And then you can find the Purple Nights podcast on Twitter at PK Podcast. So, and you can find us on Instagram, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well.
cool. In other words, your favorite podcast platform, and of course there'll be links in the show notes as well. So yeah, if they want to find you on Twitter, then it'd be make it a little bit easier
Yeah,
for them to find.
yeah.
Cool, cool. Like I said, thanks for being on the show. It's a long time coming, but it won't take that long to do it the next time.
Sounds good, man. I'll have to have you on Purple Nights again too in the near future.
Okay, yeah, just let me know.
Yeah.
Just send the Amari signal, and I'll be
Okay.
there. All right,
Right
so
on.
all right, yep. So until then, Purple listeners, create your day and create your life. Peace.
Peace and be wild, everybody.
Yes.